when I came back home, I said to my dad, okay, Dad, I'll do the Pinot. And he said, no. We split the plot in two. You do your tank, I'll do mine, and we'll compare. And after we tasted blind, and the difference was huge. And he recognized that mine was better.
Welcome to the Wine-Centric Show inside the Farrington Wine Cellar here in beautiful Pittsburgh, North Carolina. But we go out today to Alsace, France. And this woman, yes, she is a titan. And she is the magnificent Mélanie Pfister of Domaine. Mélanie Pfister. Welcome, Mélanie.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks for having me. I'm glad to participate to your show. Thanks.
I'm so glad to have you. Mélanie, I want to get right into it. So let's jump right off the cliff, as I like to say, okay? You are 8th generation winemaker of your family, the first female that has ever run the Domaine. What was the first decision you made that felt like, oh, wow, this is really mine now?
Yeah, first woman with no pressure on my shoulders, because often people ask, wow, 8th generation, that's something. I chose this way naturally, I would say. And first decision was maybe, technical decisions.
Yeah.
And the biggest difference was on the Pinot Noir winemaking.
Okay.
Compared to my father.
Give me specifics. What did you do differently? Like making
Yes.
the Pinot Noir specifically?
Yeah.
Oh, so they didn't make any Pinot Noir before that?
He did Pinot, but in another way, I would say. I was lucky to study in Burgundy, in Bordeaux, and also practiced in those regions. And when I came back home, I said to my dad, okay, Dad, I'll do the Pinot. And he said, no. We split the plot in two. You do your tank, I'll do mine, and we'll compare. And of course, I had a different different vision of making Pinot, having worked at Méo Camusset in Burgundy. So we did different pump overs and different things, different durations of skin contact. And after we tasted blind, and the difference was huge. And he recognized that mine was better.
Good old dad. Okay. I do want to unpack that because a lot of people are sitting here and they're thinking like, well, what's the difference? You make Pinot Noir, you make Pinot Noir. You were making Pinot Noir at Méo Camusset in Burgundy. I mean, an historic, wonderful Pinot Noir house. One of my favorite Burgundy because they really run the gamut from like affordable village level almost to obviously the Grand Cru. And so that's great experience amongst your other experience. But when you say specifically like your dad was making a style of Pinot Noir, so did you want to leave it longer with the maceration and leave longer hang time and stuff like that, or less?
It was longer on skin.
Okay. So what are you trying to achieve there? Like you want to achieve more color, more tannin by leaving it longer in the skin?
Not necessarily. Kind of riper structure of the tannins, so like longer tannins. My father was more looking for big colors, so big extraction, more muscular in a way. And he did shorter maceration, lots of pigeage, which is a bit more aggressive, I would say.
Your father wanted the more riper,
Yeah,
more
exactly.
like almost New World, if you want to use that
Pretty
term.
much.
Yeah. Okay.
I couldn't explain the style, but a different style.
Okay. Very cool. Well, that's great because that's a subject that I want to get into is the future of Pinot Noir in Alsace. And before we get there, though, we haven't even introduced Alsace and like a little bit of where your region is, what makes it so specific and unique. And you're even more so Alsace, where you are in Alsace is really different. So before I get there, why don't you tell us, just give us, for the listeners who maybe are just getting into Alsatian wine, they don't really know about it, tell us why this place is so wonderful for great winemaking.
Alsace is kind of unique in the way, so it's at, the very eastern corner of France, at the border with Germany, and the Rhine makes the border. So we are between Vosges Mountains and the Rhine, and on the other side of the Rhine, there's the Black Forest. So we are in a kind of little bucket where it could be really warm in summer, cool and sometimes cold in winter. And the biggest thing about Alsace is the variations of soils. So the whole foothills of the Vosges, where vineyards lay, is constituted of different types of vineyard of soils. So limestone, sandstone, granite, volcano, and that makes the whole diversity of the region from the geological part. And then it allowed us to keep so many different grape varietals too. And to produce so many different styles: dry, semi-dry, sweet. So the range of wines in Alsace is just amazing. Sometimes people could be confused about that, but it's part of our richness.
Well said. And you are certainly a great ambassador for Alsace and your area. I want to get into talking about back to the Pinot Noir for a second. But before we get there, we're talking about a sense of place. And I have to tell you, Melanie, somebody that helps me keep the lights on in this show has a great sense of place. Her name is Heather Donovan, and she is also a titan of the realty business. And she is a great realtor in the area. So I live in the Triangle region of North Carolina. You've been here, you visited. It's magnificent. It's super verdant. We have a lot of people moving to this area, maybe not to make great wine, but to have great lives. And Heather Donovan is just an absolute marvel in the area. She has such expertise. If you're looking for a home, you're thinking about a new home, or you're thinking about moving to the Triangle of North Carolina, go to heatherdhomes.com. That's heatherdhomes.com. Heather Donovan will take care of you. She found a home, a wonderful home for my father-in-law and my sister-in-law, and is just a magnificent person. So heatherdhomes.com for a sense of place if you're moving to the Triangle region of North Carolina. Okay, we'll go back from North Carolina and the Raleigh area to back to Alsace. So what you were saying is Alsace has the Vosges Mountains, which create this rain shadow effect and make a place that is what you're kind of far north.
I'm located really in the upper part of Alsace, so closer to Strasbourg than Colmar, which is uncommon for when people think about Alsace vineyards, they think about Colmar, which is the capital for Alsace wines. But I'm located 60 kilometers up north.
Yeah, and it's warmer in Alsace than you would think of a region that's that far north because of the Vosges Mountains, because of the lack of rain that it protects, right? And
True.
then the other thing about this is historically, you guys are right on the border of Germany. So you have a ton of Germanic influence in the region, right?
Definitely.
It influences your food, the style of wines you make. So the grapes that are most famous in Alsace: Pinot Blanc, Pinot Gris, Muscat, and Gewürztraminer, right? And the other thing that I find fascinating is when you look on a map, and we'll put a map of this place, but people think of France and they think of the Atlantic Ocean and they think of the Mediterranean Ocean as the main influencers, but where you are influenced by the Baltic Sea. And as a matter of fact, I find this stuff fascinating. I know people are like, oh, history. Well, I'm going to take the nap at this part of the podcast, Matt. But I think Viking culture is insanely interesting of how they infiltrated Europe back pre-medieval time. And we're talking about like 7th century, 8th century. And there's been wines talked about from your region, from Dallenheim, since 884. And I have to imagine, I know the Vikings weren't like a huge wine culture, but if you look on the map, you're actually like, you don't even have to cross a sea or a land to come down from Denmark. And so I'm wondering, I know you guys were influenced by German and Swiss, but like you're a tall woman, and like the people there, I have to imagine like way back that there's some Viking culture coming back through also. And maybe like when they learned how to write and stuff, or they were saying like, "Hey, Slante, go drink that red juice from Dallenheim. It's delicious."
Yeah, I didn't do any DNA tests to see if I have genetics coming from over there, but yeah, we definitely have uh, a cross culture in Alsace.
Yeah.
And even so, in recent times, I mean, my grandpa, for instance, he changed 5 times nationality
Oh,
due to wars, and he was French, German, French, and finally French. But yeah, so and this is really part of our being every day. It influences lots of things in Alsace traditions and in the wines, of course. Yeah.
let's talk about the wines of Alsace. So when you took over, you really honed in on the style of your family. I think your family had always made different wines than what's typically considered Alsatian in subtle ways. And I think that's an interesting broader conversation about the perception of Alsatian wines. And just to name a few to give you reference points, you have some of the most well-known producers of Alsace like Trimbach, Hugel, Domaine Weinbach. These are like, I don't know, would be the reference points if you're looking in a textbook about Alsatian wine, right? But they used a lot of residual sugar. A lot of people thought about their sweetness of wines. And you guys traditionally, almost for all of the 8 generations, have really focused on purity, very low residual sugar, and freshness.
Yeah, that's definitely the house style. And it's probably during my father's generation that it was probably tough to resist to the mainstream of making sweeter wines, because
Mhm.
the trend at his time, so I mean in the 90s, beginning of the 2000 years, at this moment, Alsatian wines that were famous for their concentration. Big wines, richer wines, very ripe. And my father continued to craft dry wines, and he definitely was against the flow at this moment. And that was kind of a strong thing. And the very positive thing is that he cultivated customers liking this style of wine. And the other positive thing is that I didn't have to do a revolution at home to do dry wines, and yeah, the style was already set.
You kind of kept the tradition in that
Yes.
sense.
Yeah.
What's so interesting to me about that is when I started becoming serious about wine and like becoming a wine professional, um, Alsace was the darling of the sommelier community, of the wine professional. Like if you were cool and people asked you what wine you're like drinking on or geeking out, you were like, oh, Alsatian Riesling, and sometimes Alsatian Pinot Gris. Like it was the on trend wine for sure.
Okay.
And at that time, that's when the pendulum was also swinging from wines that were more of place versus wines that were more about being showy and opulent and big of fruit and full of alcohol. Um, and it's just ironic because Alsace was coming out of the, like you said, the 80s and the 90s and being more influenced by commercial export and using higher levels of sugar, making sweeter wines. And so I'm just wondering, like you took over your domain in 2006. How did that, when did that switch, or did it switch back at that point and then now it's just gotten all mixed up as far as perception of Alsace?
I think some you mentioned Trimbach.
Yeah.
Trimbach always crafted dry, pretty much. He has we say Protestant style of dry wines because there's a kind of opposition between Protestant and Catholics in Alsace.
Yeah.
Even if I'm Catholic, I'm producing dry, but that's just in parenthèse.
Dry wines with flair.
The thing is that um, the style, the evolution towards sweeter wines was given by customers coming from Germany, so private customers.
Mm-hmm.
What you people have to imagine is that Alsace is a kind of corridor where there are a lot of tourists driving through. So the wine route was the first wine route ever created in France. It was created in 53, so very, very long time ago. And every single winemaker in Alsace has cellar doors and makes tastings every day, pretty much. And so during those times, so 90s, 2000 years, we had in Alsace lots of tourists coming from Germany, or not even tourists, but just people crossing the border to buy wines, and they liked sweets, and so the style became sweeter in Alsace. And then there was also a trend of kind of, yes, I'm a good winemaker, I can produce really rich grape, sweet grapes, because we were coming from the 70s, 80s, where ripeness was kind of tough to achieve. In the 70s, chaptalization was something classic in a way. Nowadays, we don't talk about that almost anymore. But at the times, that was natural to add a bit of sugar to reach 11 degrees of alcohol or something like that. And then when everything evolved, rules, viticulture skills and viticulture itinerary, so technical itinerary in the vineyards, making that everything went to more concentration of the grapes, and so with those concentrated grapes, you leave residual sugar in the wines at the end.
And
Dropping yields and everything like that, just conducted to make sweeter grapes, and the result is a sweeter wine.
so figuring that out in the timeline, so they were doing that because it was working for export and sales. And then at what point did that switch to, I think, where, like I was saying, or is it just ironic that the sommeliers and the wine community picked up on the wines at that point, and yet they were still sweet, but they were still had this like tension and acidity?
You learn. I learned it when you were just talking about that.
Oh, you didn't experience that same phenomenon?
No, in France, so sommeliers were pretty much aware of the quality of Alsace wines, and aware also of the difference of styles between different producers.
Yeah.
But most of the professional people said, okay, yeah, Alsace is good, but it doesn't sell.
Yeah. Well, as we know, sommeliers talk a lot of bullshit sometimes. So, okay, that's another thing, because Alsace actually for the consumer is in some ways, it's irony again, more easy to understand because it's the only region in France, or one of the few, I think now in the Languedoc they do it more, that puts the varietal on the bottle. And
Yeah.
but take us through the rules of that, and then also the other thing is you were never know exactly what you're getting with a bottle of Alsace, which made it difficult for consumers because you never knew the level of sweetness that it was going to be. But now they have the little measuring stick sort of on the back of the label that tells you exactly of the dryness levels, correct?
Yeah. Alsace has the fact of naming our wines by the varietal is typically a German influence. In Alsace, when people come, they come for Riesling, for a Gewürztraminer, and not for a region or a village. And in a way, it's a good key to enter the region, but it's not enough. Naming the wine by just the name of the varietal, let's think the consumer that if he drinks a Riesling, all the Rieslings taste the same. And that's typically not the case in Alsace due to the diversity of soils and styles. The different styles is now clearer, as you mentioned, on the labels. So since the 21 vintage, now every single bottle of Alsace has to mention dry, semi-dry, semi-sweet, or sweet. And that's a very positive thing was missing on our bottles.
That's
Definitely.
only since 2021?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's very recent.
Because it was in like '09 or 2010 that they, you know what I'm talking about, in the back of the bottle of Alsatian wine, you could see
kind
the
of scale.
the scale. Thank you, better word
Yeah,
for
but
it.
the scale, is only an obligation since the 21 vintage.
Okay.
And so, talking about the varietal on the label, one of the other big decision I took was 7-8 years ago when we changed the labels
Yeah.
of our bottles, because now before we had a Riesling Grand Cru. Now we have Berg and Engelberg. So we name our wines by the name of the vineyards. We still mention the varietal, of course, but the biggest thing on the label is the name of the vineyard, because it gives more link to the origin and more identity to the wine. In Burgundy, if you taste Vosne Romanée or Pommard, you drink Pinot Noir.
Yeah.
But you have the impression of having two different wines because it's Vosne Romanée and Pommard. And pretty much you are on clay and limestone. When in Alsace, you can have two different Rieslings from limestone and granite, which are very, very different, but still it's only named Riesling. And so for the consumer, it's reductive in a way.
Alsace has had this Grand Cru system since 1975, right?
Yes.
It's 51 Grand Crus today that they mention. So that was an effort way back then to get to that level of specificity of saying, okay, a Riesling from Momberg tastes like this, and a Riesling from, Engelberg or Ribeauville tastes like this. And by the way, one of the signature parts of your wine is that where you are in Dallenheim is on a limestone bed. And
Yes.
for those of you like, oh, what the heck does that mean? Well, limestone really results in a wine of freshness, minerality. It's more about less about necessarily the fruit than the freshness of the wine, in a very simple way to say that. I love that comparison, especially when we were talking about Pinot Noir earlier, because people have been studying and known about Burgundy for centuries, right? You had the Cistercian monks back to the 11th century. They've talked about Burgundy and they've outlined it, and it's been very specific. Only in Alsace since 1975 do we have a somewhat of a classification of Grand Crus. And even for me, somebody that, has studied wine, I still forget them. And I don't know, like, oh, is Ribeauville on granite or is it on, clay or whatever. So how do you pass that on to the consumer and how do you educate them about those things?
I must say that I'm only on limestone. So you see the wall behind me. That was built by my ancestors. The farm was built in 17th century, and so I have only limestone. So people know that when they drink a Mélanie Pfister wine, they will have a wine from limestone. But then we have also subtlety between the different types of limestone. And when I welcome people at our cellar doors, I really try to let them feel the freshness, of course, but also limestone is like this. It's broader in structure than a granite, which is thinner, and this difference make also that our wines on limestone age really well. They're not as expressive when young, not as fruity maybe, but definitely based on structure, on density, and freshness.
Yes, I love that. And I think, okay, so that brings me to a question here. If you had to give one wine to introduce your winery to an American wine drinker, which wine would you present? They can only taste one wine.
Good question. To an American, I would pour a Riesling, because very often, when I also have customers coming from the US here, and often they think that Riesling is sweet.
Yep.
So I would pour our Berg Riesling, which is our kind of typical Riesling from the estate, and it is dry, has an electric acidity, and really defines the style of our wines. Yeah.
I love it because we're debunking that myth that Riesling is always sweet. And especially in America, and we think about like, oh, anytime you present a Riesling to a consumer, the answer 9 times out of 10 is, oh, I don't like sweet wines, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that's the perfect answer because it's like, okay, good. So try this, because also they have such a connotation with crisp white, for example, Sancerre. Everybody knows what Sancerre is. What's the key to get people to think about Alsatian Riesling from your area just on the same lines as Sancerre, because it can give you the same pleasure? It's not the same grape. They're not all the same flavors, but I'm talking about in terms of a precise, crisp white wine.
So far, Alsace is not the crisp white wine region.
No,
And
but
for
it could
example, in
be.
Alsace,
It could be from your region, from some of the wine, from some of the producers that are making those the dry style.
yeah, and I mean, the whole Alsace is now going towards dry, or drier. I mean, and but if your question, if I would have had like an Alsatian customer,
Okay.
and I should choose one wine, I would have pulled our Fürth Pinot Gris,
Okay.
because in Alsace, Pinot Gris is known as being sweet, or at least semi-sweet. But we've always been crafting this dry Pinot Gris, and so I would have put a Pinot Gris to these people.
For an Alsatian winemaker
For
or
an
Alsatian person. Let me
Yeah.
ask you this. So in the wine world, and I'm obviously coming from an American centric point of view, right? I think about like, oh, in my mind, especially being from New York, everybody around the world wanted their wines in New York. It's like, because in New York City, you have such an influence from both old world wines and new world wines, wines coming from California or wines coming from anywhere around the world. If you were in New York City, that was like a validation point, like, oh, I've made it. If you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. Do you care about that anymore, especially with tariffs? More of a global universe. Is America still is it your number one market for export?
It is by our biggest markets,
Mm-hmm.
of course, and yeah, the US is huge, and I mean it's an important market, yeah, also by its influences.
But you're also close to Denmark, and the Danes drink a lot. They're a smaller country, but they drink a lot. So I don't know. I mean,
Yeah, they drink a lot. Belgium is small as well, and they drink a lot. Not only beer.
yeah. So in thinking about that, and thinking about how global exports change, and Asia, right, buys a lot of wine, do you ever change the style of your winemaking to fit that? Because your predecessors did, right? You were saying like, oh, the Germans came through and they like the sweet wine, so we made our wines more sweet. Is that still happening today? And do you ever do that, or do you make a style, one or two of your cuvées that kind of lend itself more to a specific target?
We don't change our line. We're producing the wines we like and the wines we want to drink. But yeah, I mean now Alsace go towards dry because the market is demanding for dry wines, or at least the market doesn't look for sweeter style anymore in Alsace or in other regions. Sauternes or Jurançon is not demanded anymore. So, of course, globally speaking, a region has to adapt. But pretty much Alsace is in the good slots. We do whites mainly. Alsace is planted with 85 to 90% of whites. We have big part of sparkling wine, which is also a good market share. And then the only red which is allowed in Alsace is Pinot Noir, and the light reds are still demanded. So we are in good position to really have nice future for our wines.
Speaking of, you said position, and that made me think of something. So I'm going to switch gears to your personal life for a moment because I hear you have a really good jump shot.
I used to.
You used to? What position did you play in basketball?
For
You played the four. Yeah, you're a
yeah.
tall woman, a tall person. Do you still play at all?
No, I broke my ankle a few years ago, and
Like who's your team? Like do you follow the French league or do you follow the NBA?
both because now there are many French players in WNBA and NBA. Yeah, French are number ones at draft, and yeah.
They are. And I know Tony Parker was making a wine for a while. I don't know if he still is, but
Yes, in Provence.
in
Yeah, yeah.
Provence, yeah. And wait, so who's your NBA team if you had to cheer for an NBA team?
Golden State.
Golden State Warriors. Okay. Well, I'll transition really quickly here, Melanie, again, because, up there in the Pacific Northwest where the Golden State is, they make a lot of coffee. Obviously, that's where Starbucks started. But I have partnered with a local Carborough coffee roasters, and I'm making a coffee with them. Well, I'm not making it, sorry. But my name and my show is on the label. It is a Peruvian single origin coffee made by a farmer named Edith Meza. It's a Pacamara varietal. So that's like if you were to say Riesling or something like that. And it's delicious. This farmer, Edith Meza, I think you guys would have a lot of synergy. I'm going to send you a bag of the coffee, and you're going to let me know how much you enjoy it and if it keeps you caffeinated while you're working in the vineyard.
I tell you.
All right. So back to this discussion of Pinot Noir in Alsace. It's 15% of the plantings. That I imagine has changed probably a lot over in your almost 20 years of making wine. Like, has it significantly grown?
In Alsace, it used to be 10, but now I think it's between 10 and 15. And at home, it's now 20%.
20%. Okay.
Yeah.
I was thinking about this. Do you think as we go down the road and we have climate change, we're getting warmer, and the prices of red Burgundy just continue to soar, that Pinot Noir from Alsace could ever rival the Pinots of Burgundy?
Rival, I won't say that, but at least Alsace now found its own style. We don't want to make a poor copy of Burgundies. We want to make our own style of Alsace, and with climate change, the northern limit of each varietal is getting northern, and definitely we are in the good part for Pinot, and we're still within this northern limit, making that it ripens perfectly now in Alsace, and we now the young generation studied in Burgundy, did some experiences, internships in different regions and in Burgundy, and so we now have everything in our hands to produce really good Pinot.
How would you describe your Pinot Noir?
Our touch is always keeping freshness. But the same, you said that about our whites and the style. I like freshness in the wines, including Pinot. So I look for the delicacy of the grape, fresh red fruits, and with an aging in oak, which is not overwhelming. It has to just to underline the wine, but not make up the fruit. Yeah.
Because almost all of your wines, I think, except two, are aged in stainless steel.
True.
And that brings me to another question, but I want to finish this thread of Pinot Noir. So you aged Pinot Noir in oak. Is it French oak?
French oak.
And is it do you have some new oak in there, or is it
Never.
never all neutral? And the other thing about that for people, just to give them a reference point of like, oh, why should I try Alsatian Pinot Noir? Freshness, limestone, really, you have that French sort of je ne sais quoi behind it for a cliche. But you're on the same latitude lines as Willamette Valley in Oregon, which is why they grow Pinot Noir, Pinot Gris, and Riesling there as well, and do it very well. So that, I think, could give you like a jump off point into give people a reason to try Alsatian Pinot Noir.
And we feel, you were talking about Burgundy's rising prices, and we feel that Alsace deserves now more focus, and it has.
Do you see other producers nearby planting more Pinot Noir?
Yes, yeah. And in nurseries, so we have nurseries in Alsace, and they were producing mainly Pinot Noir those last years.
In the vineyard, do you treat it differently? The Pinot Noir, the Rieslings, all the varietals. I know, just to give a base to that question, is you've moved everything over to organic practices. You're certified organic in the vineyards, and you also practice biodynamics. For just a very general explanation of what that means, biodynamic, it means like organics on steroids. You do everything that organic does, but you more harvest and treat your vineyard by the moon phases. And then there's some other pagan rituals that go in that I don't know about. Maybe you do them, but I say all that just to give people of understanding. A lot of care to the land. I think your father kind of instilled those practices way before. Talk to us about how you use those practices and if the grape varietals are treated differently in the vineyard.
Yeah, so my father started to, in the 80s, so very, very early, to do a kind of no-till agriculture, sowing new cover crops between the rows instead of just having grass or having nothing. Most of the growers at the time had nothing between the rows, not even grass, but they did herbicides or plowing everything. So we try to plow a minimum to keep a good structure of the soil, a good life. Yes, everything is activated by the fauna in the soil, and so we try to really emphasize this life in the soil, and so we're pretty much obliged to have a block management because we have so many different types of soils. We can't do everything the same way. We can't be systematic and do the same thing everywhere because the soils of two different plots won't work the same way. So some are more richer, some are just poorer, and we will do different things, different type of mulching or not mulching, and depending on each plot. Yeah.
Okay, so that makes it the job of your farmers very difficult because it's very specific. You can't rinse and repeat. It's really specific to each plot. Also, as far as the Domaine goes, I think you make about 5,000 cases of wine total throughout all the wines. Is there a chance for you to make more or acquire more vineyards?
We did acquire a few new vineyards over the last 5 years. They're not all in production because when we get a new plot and that we need to pull out the vines, we do a long resting time. So we just have the plot on fallow, sowing alfalfa and other crops to give new life in the soil before planting, and those vines will come in production within 3 years.
Okay. And what will you plant there? A variety of varietals, or?
I did plant Pinot.
Okay.
On a new site, and that's really exciting, definitely. And I also planted Riesling.
Okay. I'm telling you, people, you've heard it here. It's like everyone's going to start buying Alsatian Pinot Noir. So I'm thankful that you're going to, oh, at least all the people that like Oregon Pinot Noir and they like Burgundy, they're going to start trying Alsatian Pinot Noir, especially from Domaine Mélanie Pfister. You also have started something, I think since 2021, you now make orange wine. So for those of you out there, orange wine, for also a very simple explanation, is a white wine varietal treated like red wine, meaning that there's maceration on the skin. So you're getting color and some tannin from the grapes, and typically aged in barrel or aged like a red wine. Why did you decide to start making orange wines?
Yeah, actually, the first vintage was 2018.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're
So
always before the
2018.
trend.
Almost.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was a kind of challenge for me because those wines appeared on the market, and in Alsace, there is a kind of big, pretty big current and flow of natural wines, maceration wines, and I wanted to see what I'm able to do. And and we did that for Pinot Gris and Gewürztraminer. And the nice thing with those two grapes is that those grapes, okay, normally they produce white juice, but they're colored. Pinot Gris is really dark in color.
Yeah.
The skin is purple, and Gewürztraminer is rather orange pink. And
Okay.
so doing skin contact for those grapes gave colored wines and color, anthocyanins, tannins, leaving and giving a different structure to the wines compared to a classic white juice.
And I will say, there's a lot of, I've had your maceration, they're called wines. I've had the Pinot Gris, actually. I haven't had the Gewürztraminer. And a lot of orange wines, I get frustrated because they get overly funky, because it's almost like a trial of, oh, let's see how we treat this white wine. And then we don't, and then it's kind of like we're experimenting on my dime. But your orange wine is very clean. It's got just a touch of funk, which is in a great way, and it really expresses the grape. And like you said, it makes sense because Pinot Gris has this color, so it's like, why not extract it a little bit like we would a red wine?
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, the goal at the beginning was to do a skin contact wine and not a natural wine, not a natural wine. But
Sure.
finally, it appeared to be natural because I didn't add any sulfite during the whole aging, which was pretty long for an orange wine. I did a 1 year aging for most of our wines, and I didn't need to add any sulfite. So the first year I said, okay, I will bottle without filtration, without sulfites added, and yeah, the 2018 still stands nicely in the glass.
I
Yeah.
love it.
So, and the Pinot, the nice thing with Pinot is that this one is aged 100% in neutral oak, so but not giving any oak taste. When I age my Pinot Noir, they used oak, but not neutral. They are 1 to 3 years old, so
Okay.
they still give a little taste. But for the Pinot Gris, the maceration Pinot Gris, they just bring oxygen because Pinot is a reductive grape, and sometimes even when opening the bottle, even if it has no sulfites, it could be a slightly reductive, and pouring that wine in a black glass is really tricky because once every one time on 3 people would say red wine, rosé wine. Yeah, more than 1 on 3. It's really macerating a Pinot Gris goes to Pinot Noir because those two grapes are really like brothers.
Yeah, it wasn't at some point Pinot Gris or Pinot Noir was a mutation of the other, right? They
Yes.
actually
Yeah.
mutated on the vine. So yeah, they're genetically related. Well, for a fun parlor trick at your next dinner party, you can have people blind taste out of a black glass and do the maceration from Melanie's wine. I love it. Melanie, as we get to time here, just thinking about back to, we haven't really talked much about it, but like, you not only took over from 8 generations of your family winemaking, as we said, the first woman of it. And not only that, but you've really been at the forefront of female winemakers in France and the world. Are you still part of, was it La Femme du Vin organization?
Yeah, it's an association called Femmes de Vin.
Okay.
And yeah, I was the president of this association from 2017 to 23, so 6 years. And today it's Aurélie Bertin from Château Sainte-Roseline in Provence.
Okay.
Very nice estate in Provence. And yeah, this association is actually the national thing for 10 regional associations. So pretty much every region in France has its own female winemaker association, and Femmes de Vin is the French association which regroups those 10 associations. It's really it's a really nice network for all of us. We are like between I would say around 270 women coming all over from France, and we try to share many things technically, also socially. What we really, when we have a problem, we know that we can count on those women, and it's really helping. And because when we work as a winemaker on our own domain, we quickly could be really only focused on our own problems, and that gives really open-mindedness to everyone, and we then notice that we're not alone in that situation, and it's really helpful for at many different aspects.
Yeah, it takes you out of like the tunnel vision, gives you more of a global perspective
Yes.
of what's going on in the wine world and with women, winemaking, and the whole thing. Very cool. 2 last questions, and then we'll let you get back to the winemaking. Give us 2 or 3 of the best food pairings you've ever had with your wines. And which wines were they, and what was the food?
Alors,
Put you on the spot, Mélanie.
talking about maceration.
Yeah.
For example, Macération Gewürztraminer,
Yeah.
dry, bone dry with ossobuco.
Okay.
Ossobuco with Gremolata, so orange peel.
That sounds delicious.
Perfect pairing.
Any other so Gewürztraminer with ossobuco, and any other memorable ones? Is ossobuco, by the way, like I know that as a Italian, like Langhe dish or Piedmont dish, is that typical of the region in Alsace?
No, okay. It's not. But you find in many restaurants.
Okay, give us a dish that's typical of the region, and pick out a pairing.
Choucroute.
Choucroute.
Of course.
That's like a sausage.
Choucroute is cabbage. It's sauerkraut. Choucroute is sauerkraut, so cabbage which is sour, and then you have 2 different versions. You can have the meat one or the fish one. Choucroute à la viande, choucroute au poisson.
Okay.
And I can give you 2 different pairings. Okay. So when it's with meat, sausages, meat. So when you have the choucroute royale, you have 7 different pieces of meat, sausages.
That sounds like my kind of dish.
It's huge, like this. And in that case, I would take Berg Riesling.
Okay.
So the electric one.
Yeah.
With the choucroute au poisson, here you have then 3 different types of fishes and a creamy sauce. And in that case, I would go for an Engelberg Riesling or Grand Cru, which has more body, and would pair the creaminess of the sauce.
So okay, because of the sauce, but the Engelberg would go with the Brisson, the fish one. Okay,
yes.
Seafood, love it. Okay, last question. next harvest will be your 20th vintage. You have anything special planned to mark that?
No, actually, no. But
Business as usual.
I officially took over in 2008. 2006 was my very first vintage with my father as a cellar hand at the time.
Okay.
And
Okay, so 2028 will be your official as head winemaker finish one.
yes.
Got it.
Or 27. 27?
27. Okay.
Yeah, 8. Yeah.
We'll figure out. We're not meant to do math on the show. Mélanie,
But I didn't think about that.
Oh, see? Yeah.
I will have to.
You'll have to now. And make sure my invitation goes to the right address, and I will be there to celebrate it and have some charcuterie. Mélanie, it's so fun to catch up with you. And we didn't even talk about this, but I already had reached out to you to have you on the Wine Centric show beforehand, but there was a week where like 3 of the most prominent buyers in my region reached out to me about your wines and said, "Hey, can we taste?" And I was just wondering, I was like, what's happening? Like, I know Mélanie's wines are great, obviously, but is there something in the zeitgeist? Were you on a podcast? Were you in an article or something like that? Do you have any idea what was happening? It was like maybe a month ago.
No, because honestly, I'm not really good at communication. Our website is under construction since ages. I'm not posting anything on Instagram. So no, I don't know.
All right. Well, we'll have to get you on the Instagram. We'll have to keep in touch. And for everybody out there, please get yourself some Domaine Mélanie Pfister wines. You will drink deliciously.